Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Behind the Reel. I'm your host John. Today we're going to talk about the Legal Dope Swimbaits Baby Nuisance Wake. This is one of my favorite swim baits that I've ever fished. I've had a lot of great success on it, and today we're going to talk about how I was able to use this bait to catch fish. Might be a little bit different than you guys are fishing your wake, so stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss what we got coming up. Alright guys, so this is the bait that we're talking about. This bait is made by a good friend of mine. His name is Edwin Chardon, and he has actually been on our podcast twice. So if you guys have not seen those, definitely go check those out. I'll definitely link that video in the cards above. But Edwin Chardon, Legal Dope Swimbaits, big shout out to him. He makes some really killer baits, and this is only one of the many. He is actually getting ready to bring this bait back. He stopped making this bait for a while, and he's made a lot of really cool profiles other than this. So definitely go check them out. But these are coming back. You guys will have an opportunity to buy some of these and actually use this bait to put fish in the boat, just like I have been able to. First of all, this is a wake bait. This is in the wake category. You see the bill there. The bill is one of the things that stands out the most about this bait. I'm sure there are other wake baits that have this capability, but this thing has the ability to come through cover really well. And one of the main reasons why it's able to do that, why this thing is a true 4x4 of the swim bait world, is because that bill actually covers that front hook. So as it hits grass, as it hits wood, as it hits rock, it climbs over the top of it, and the hooks are not going to be grabbing anything because there's actually that is covering the hook. So now the opposite side of that, you wonder if your hookup ratio could possibly be affected by that, and I imagine so. If they come at the bait from the face first or something, but I really have not experienced any bad hookups, honestly. I think I did lose a fish on this. He jumped and he was able to spit the hook, but probably just didn't get a very good hook in him to begin with. This bait is definitely invoking some violent reactions. This bait is, the way that I'm working it, again, might be a little bit different than how you guys are working some of your wake baits. I am really cranking this thing down more than I'm doing anything. I have not caught a single fish off of this bait on topwater. I'm not fishing it that way. Maybe certain times of the year I should, but I was fishing this in the middle of the summer. Pretty warm water temperatures, and I'm fishing this a lot around grass and submerged timber. And I fished this in some really heavy timber situations, and I also was fishing this on top of grass mats. So the nice thing about this bait is that you can work it in the trees, you can work it around the grass, and I think the only time I ever got this thing hung up on a piece of structure or a piece of cover was when I actually threw it at a tree, and I just hit the tree, and obviously the treble hooks did their job and stuck to the tree, and I had to go pull it off the tree. So that was my fault. But as far as actually getting this thing hung up underneath the water, have not done that. And please believe that I am running this thing through the thick of it. I was not at all worried about losing this bait, probably out of my own ignorance, but because of that, I found out that this bait does perform really well under those conditions. So if you guys are looking for a wake bait, if you guys are wanting to fish this on the surface or subsurface, this bait does a great job of that as well. It has a nice waking action, and it does make some commotion. Obviously, we've got some really nice paint on this bait as well. This is from B&A. And they do a really good job. This is their crappie paint job if you guys are interested. I know Edwin will be doing some more of these. He's going to be dropping some more of these baits soon, and more than likely we'll have an option to get some B&A custom paint on these baits. So one thing I do want to talk about, and we can go ahead and go back to some on the water footage when I was out at Wilson. I caught a nice 16-inch, fish off of it. That was the first fish that I had caught off of this bait, and it was a nice thud. I think that what is actually happening is this is a big enough profile to where I don't know that they're necessarily, I really don't feel like they're eating this thing. I really don't feel like they're eating it at all. This is not a meal to them. The way that this thing moves in the water, this is not like a glide, a soft like bait fish dying presentation. This is, I'm cranking this thing. I might be pausing it and twitching it and doing some things along the way, but for the most part, this thing, if you put it around a bass, it's going to have one of two reactions. Either it's just going to let it go by, or it's going to say, get the heck out of here, this is my turf, and it's just basically telling it, get out of here. It may not even be trying to eat it at all, but the problem is that, when it does hit it, when it nudges it with its nose, it's getting a treble hook in it, and these treble hooks have been holding up. I really don't even know what kind of treble hooks these are. They are pretty small, right? They're not very big, but you definitely don't want to go too big with that front treble hook in order to give it its almost weedless capabilities there. Its weedless properties there is that bill. That bill almost makes it weedless. So, what I was doing out there at Wilson was I was actually cruising the grass line. So there was some pretty heavy matted grass up on the bank, and about 5 to 10 feet off the bank, you would have this grass mat kind of die off. You'd have some real thick grass up on the bank, and then what I was seeing fish cruising along the bank, or along that grass line rather. And so I started throwing this bait, and I really wasn't familiar with this bait at all. It was the first time I ever threw it out at Wilson in the middle of a tournament, and I decided, hey, I'm going to try to put this bait where these fish are. To my knowledge, this is essentially a topwater bait, but I noticed that the faster I cranked it, the more it would go down, and I want to say I was able to get this thing about 4 or 5 feet down in the water column without doing anything special. I didn't add any weight, or anything like that. I think at the time I was even using mono. I switched it up, put some fluorocarbon on the reel, and seemed to have maybe even been able to get it down a little bit further. If you go down in the diameter of line, I'm running 25-pound fluorocarbon. I've thought about going down to 20 or 17, just being able to get these down a little bit further. So what I was doing was I was cranking this down, and I was basically trying to get this thing up on that weed edge, and within the first probably 10 or 15 minutes of doing this, I was able to catch a fish. And I went through, and I think I culled every single one of my fish that day with this bait. It wasn't enough to win the tournament. It wasn't even enough to get into the top 5, but I started out with a very small limit that day. I was catching like 12, 13-inch fish, and I was able to cull every single fish on this bait, including a 19.5-incher, which we'll go ahead and play the clip of that right here. All right, so you can see on the clip there that we are showing that, so you can see from the clip there that I was, again, a little bit of ways away from the bank, and in this particular little cove that I went back into, you could see a lot of vegetation, but you could also see a lot of timber. And in fact, there's one point in this clip where the fish actually gets hung up on a little stick up, and you could actually see that the water clarity here at Wilson was probably 4 or 5 feet at this point, and this is definitely a very lifelike presentation. This is a crappie paint job, but I think this could also be mistaken as a baby bass, just the color scheme there. If you even wanted to imitate some sort of bait fish, I think this really just does a great job overall imitating any sort of prey or any sort of nuisance, right, that these bass are having to deal with. So really impressed with the paint job here, but at this point I think what this bass was doing is it was, you know, up kind of on the bank, and it may have been feeding. I don't really know what this bass was doing in particular, because it was kind of back in a cove, and it may have been cruising along kind of doing the same thing, just looking for food like these other fish I think we're doing. But anyways, I cranked it down. I kind of hit it on some timber. I could feel it, you know, let up on my reel a little bit, and then keep cranking it just to keep it coming through that stuff. And this thing hit it pretty good, and started tugging on it pretty good too. So put up a decent little fight, got me wrapped up around that stick, and I was able to get it in the boat. So that was my best fish of the day. And actually, fast forward a little bit to the next tournament, was out at Cali State Fishing Lake, a local Air Capital Kayak Anglers event, and I was able to win that using this bait only. And I was doing the same thing, so I actually kind of found the same bite that I had out there at Wilson, out at Cali. Clear water conditions again, a lot of matted vegetation, and even at one point I actually was fishing this on top of a grass mat, and the grass mat stopped about a foot below the surface of the water. So there was about a foot or so, foot to 18 inches, and I was just working this thing more as a wake, I would say, than any other time that I had caught a fish on this thing. But I was working it on top of this matted grass, and you know, the nice thing is if I started to feel a little bit of resistance, I knew that I was kind of getting into the mat, and then I could just kind of let go, it'd float back up, and I just continue to work it a little bit more slowly. And I had one come up out of that mat and devour it. And I'll go ahead and play a clip of that, and you guys can see all of the vegetation that that came along with it. There it is, guys. This thing had me stuck in this grass a couple times, but I was still able to get it. Those treble hooks on that thing were not letting go of this thing. There it is, 19.5 inches. That's my second 19.5 inch fish. There it is right there. So you can see that I was fishing this in some really heavy matted grass, some really heavy vegetation, and that is really the main reason why I'm so impressed with this bait. One, yes, it catches fish. Two, you know, the reaction strike that you get out of this bait, the size, the profile, the color, I'm sure all of it has something to do with it, but most importantly it's the action. And it does have a pretty aggressive action when you're working it the way that I am. The way that I describe it, guys, is just working it like a square bill crankbait. So if you guys are on a good crankbait bite, on a good square bill bite, throw this thing out there, and you're gonna get some bigger fish. The cool thing is, and this is what I found out at Wilson, I'm getting smaller fish on this thing too, 14, 15 inches. And even out at Cali, I caught an 11 incher on this thing. I mean, this is like 6 inches or so, and the fish that I caught on it was not even twice the size of this bait. So I think if I have a picture, I'll throw it up here just so you can see the size of fish that are willing to commit to this profile of bait. So guys, that's just kind of my rundown here on the Legal Dope Nuisance Wake bait. This is the Baby Nuisance. Again, shout out to Edwin Chardon, shout out to Legal Dope Swimbaits. They're going to be re-releasing this bait, so you guys will have an opportunity to get one very soon. Make sure you guys pick one up for sure. Try to get some of that B&A paint on it if you can. It holds up really nicely. I have caught over a dozen fish on this bait, and the paint is holding up really well. Very impressed with it, and very impressed with this bait overall. So make sure you guys get one of these. Throw it in the thickest stuff that you can possibly throw it in and catch the fish of your lifetime. Guys, make sure you stay tuned to what we have coming up next. I'm going to be fishing a lot more swim baits this next year, and another cool one that I just got from Legal Dope is the Big Brother here, and this is the 3-piece Nuisance, and as you can see, the profile's a little bit bigger. It's going to be a little bit heavier, but got a really nice paint job. Shout out to B&A again on this one. Really nice perch paint job there. So also got a tum-tum on the way. So you guys, if you haven't checked them out, go check them out. Legal Dope Swimbaits. And you can even go pick up a hat just like this one over at legaldopeswimbaits.bigcartel.com. And guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what your favorite swim bait is. I would really like to know, because I've got some more swim baits on the way as well, and I'm gonna try to do a little bit more swim bait fishing. What swim bait would you like to see me either throw or do a little review just like this one? All right guys, appreciate you. Stay tuned for the next one.